On the edge of the forgotten plains, where the wind whispers secrets only the dust remembers, stood our old family homestead. It wasn't just a house. It was a museum of memories, each floorboard groaning with the weight of generations past. I'd grown up on stories about it, tales of resilience and hardship, but also whispers of things that went bump in the night. My grandfather, a man whose face was a roadmap of a life well lived, would always end his stories with a twinkle in his eye, saying, "The house remembers, kid. It always remembers." I decided to spend a week there, a sort of personal retreat to disconnect from the city's frantic pace and reconnect with my roots. The first few days were idyllic. I spent my time patching up the fence, reading on the porch swing, and just listening to the silence. The only company I had was the rustling of the cottonwood trees and the distant call of a lone coyote. The city felt a million miles away, and a deep sense of peace settled over me. That peace, however, began to fray on the fourth night. It started suddenly, a door creaking open in an empty hallway. The feeling of being watched as I sat by the fireplace. I brushed it off as my imagination, my city-slicker senses on high alert in the unfamiliar quiet. The house was old, after all. Wood settles, wind howls. There was a rational explanation for everything. Or so I told myself. The fifth night, the whispers began. They were faint at first, like the static between radio stations, just on the edge of hearing. I'd be reading a book and a soft sighing sound would drift from the corner of the room. I'd pause, listen, and hear nothing but the crackling fire. I tried to convince myself it was just the wind, but this was different. It had a cadence, a human quality that sent a shiver down my spine. Then came the night everything changed. A storm had rolled in, a real monster of a prairie storm that rattled the windows and made the whole house tremble. The power predictably went out, plunging the homestead into absolute darkness, broken only by the brilliant flashes of lightning. I lit a few kerosene lamps, their warm, flickering glow casting long, dancing shadows across the walls. The house felt more alive than ever, groaning and creaking under the storm's assault. That's when I heard it. A distinct, clear sound from upstairs. Thump, thump, thump. Slow, heavy footsteps, pacing back and forth in the master bedroom directly above me. The room where my great-grandparents had lived and eventually passed away. My heart hammered against my ribs. I wasn't alone. I called out, my voice trembling. "Hello? Is someone up there?" The only reply was the roaring wind and the steady, rhythmic thumping. Gathering every ounce of courage I had, I grabbed the heaviest fireplace poker and started up the creaking staircase. Each step was a battle against my own fear. The air grew colder as I ascended, a biting, unnatural chill that had nothing to do with the storm. With each lightning flash, the portraits of my ancestors lining the stairwell seemed to watch me, their painted eyes following my every move. When I reached the top of the stairs, the pacing stopped. Silence, a heavy, oppressive silence that was somehow worse than the noise. The door to the master bedroom was slightly ajar. I pushed it open slowly, the poker held out in front of me like a sword. The room was empty. A flash of lightning illuminated the space, revealing the antique four-poster bed, the dust-covered rocking chair, the old vanity table. Nothing was out of place. I let out a shaky breath, a nervous laugh escaping my lips. It must have been the storm, a loose shutter, something. I was about to turn and leave when I saw it. On the dusty floorboards, leading from the hallway to the window, was a set of wet footprints, and they weren't mine. They were the prints of heavy, worn work boots, the kind my great-grandfather always wore in his old photographs. And they were leading away from the bed, straight toward the window that overlooked the family cemetery. My blood ran cold. I backed out of the room slowly, my eyes locked on those impossible footprints. As I retreated down the hall, the whispers started again, but this time they were clearer. Not threatening, but sad. Melancholy sighs and murmurs filled the air, the voices of people long gone, their stories and sorrows echoing in the old house. I heard a woman's soft weeping from one room, a man's low, tired sigh from another. Instead of terror, a strange sense of understanding washed over me. These weren't malevolent spirits. This was my family. The house wasn't just remembering. It was replaying. The storm had stirred them, woken them from their slumber. These were the echoes of their lives, the joys and the heartbreaks, imprinted on the very walls of their home. I went back downstairs and sat by the fire, no longer afraid. I just listened. I listened to the footsteps of my great-grandfather pacing, a habit my grandpa said he had when he was worried about the crops. I listened to the faint sound of a lullaby, the same one my grandmother used to sing to my father. It was like I was sitting in a room full of ghosts, but they weren't strangers. They were family. The storm eventually passed, and as the first light of dawn broke over the plains, the house fell silent once more. The chill in the air dissipated, and the heavy atmosphere lifted. When I went upstairs in the daylight, the footprints were gone. It was as if the night had never happened. But I knew it had. The experience changed me. I wasn't just visiting a house. I had been welcomed into a living history. I left the homestead a few days later, but I took a piece of it with me. A profound connection to my past and a deep respect for the stories that old places hold. My grandfather was right. The house remembers. And on that stormy night, it allowed me to remember with it. It was a terrifying, beautiful, and unforgettable experience. Sometimes the veil between worlds is thinner than we think, and if we're brave enough to listen, we might just hear the whispers of those who came before. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.